Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It is Thursday, and I just looked at my watch and it says it's the 15th all day, which is very exciting. We are joined on screen here by Sergeant Jason Kraft and Auxiliary PC Amanda Macdonald, a member of our Auxiliary Police program. That's where I got my start. So it's an awesome program. And if you want more information about that, we'll talk about it in just a little bit. But we've got a couple of things to talk about. Oh, I didn't press the go live button on VoiceOver Cops. Let me do that. What else is going on? We are going to talk about child restraints. We're going to talk about traffic safety. We're going to talk about the internet and things that are going on because we have numbers that keep climbing on now other platforms. So anyway, we are going to jump right into it, and I want to start with Vision Zero Enforcement Team. You may have heard of Vision Zero Enforcement Team. It is the team of dedicated officers that go and give people tickets for breaking the rules, and they focus on a specific set of rules. And why do they do that? Because it's the things that lead to serious injury and death on our roads. So they focus on speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. And they're out in all different places, augmenting the work that divisional officers are doing every day, all the time, a lot. But there's just more. So why do they go to the places they go? They go because the analytics, people with big brains tell them to go there because that's where they're needed most. Today, they are in 22 Division and 33 Division. Yeah, I wrote that down correctly. And if you're ever wondering where that is, well, you can use a handy-dandy divisional map, which can be found at bit.ly/divmap. It's on the screen. Check it out. I'll leave it up for a couple of seconds. You can find out where you live. It's where is Waldo in reverse? So with that out of the way, good morning, Sarge. Good morning, Amanda. What's happening?
Good morning.
I'm just for the one person who's watching me on oh, that's two people. The two people watching me right here can only hear me. If you are interested in tuning into the show, check us out on Twitter, Traffic Services. You can check us out on Facebook, Traffic Services. You can also get us at Traffic Services. It's Traffic Services Toronto Police on YouTube. So join us there. And then back to this camera because now I feel like I'm in a big old studio because we got so much going on. So Amanda, thanks for coming back to the show. We have been anxiously awaiting your return because we get so many questions about child restraints. When can people upgrade to different, from booster and rear facing to forward facing, from forward facing to booster, and then when can they go in the front and the back and the side? Can you just take over and tell everybody?
Let's not have any side facing seats here.
No side facing. Okay, point taken. Nothing in the back of pickup trucks. That's I saw someone in the back of a pickup truck yesterday riding in the back. No seat, no seat belt. Kind of illegal. Just saying.
I should send you the video I found recently of what happens to the bed of a pickup truck if it's hit in a collision. It disappears. So if you're in the bed of the pickup truck in that collision, you're out of luck there. You're not going to do very well.
This particular gardener wasn't even wearing a shirt. Just saying.
Or shoes.
That's
I don't know, but
that's a life choice, but it might not end very well for you.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. And there was also all sorts of equipment that was not properly secured. I was in my personal vehicle. I had no ability to do anything about it. I'm sure had I stopped them, they would say, "Well, I was just going from here to there. It was really short." And unfortunately, bad things happen when closest to home or in work sites, apparently. But let's focus not on shirtless man in back of pickup, but let's talk about kids in back of cars, because that is really what we're talking about. In my experience as a police officer while patrolling, whenever I came across a vehicle that I was stopping for a Highway Traffic Act offense, one of the first things I did was check the status of the car seat. It was part of my routine. I want to make sure the kids are safe because I want to make sure that everyone's safe, but kids in particular because it's not their responsibility to ensure that they are safe as their parents. So I always would inspect the car seat and its installation. So I can't tell you how many times I inspected a car and the seat was buckled very nicely, except it wasn't attached to the actual car, the seat at all. Like push the seat, falls over. What do you tell parents about how to do the right thing?
Well, so read your manual. That's always my very first step. And there's usually videos and things through the companies as well. The car seat's only as good as how they're installed and how the child's in them. It's a life-saving device. It's not a fashion accessory or anything like that. So you need to make sure, because that is what's going to keep your child safe in a collision. You need to make sure it's secure to the vehicle so that there's less than an inch of movement when you kind of shake it where the belt goes through. And then you need that harness nice and secure, because that's what's keeping the child in the seat. If it's not secure, unfortunately, there have been cases of children being ejected from their car seats because in a collision, those forces are very, very strong. Now, you want to start rear facing. That's typically people are going to start with that infant seat that connects to the stroller. Then they're going to move up to another rear-facing car seat. They should stay rear-facing. I mean, legal is minimum of 22 pounds. Really, it should be as close to 4 as we can get them. We want them as far along their growth and development as we can, because that's the safest position for them, is going to be rear-facing. Then we'll move them into a forward-facing seat until they are mature enough to handle going into a booster. Most kids, it's around 6 years old. Then they're going to go into their booster. They need to be in that booster. I know the law in Ontario is 8 years or 80 pounds or 4'9". The average adult seatbelt is designed for a 5'9" adult male.
Wow.
Your 8-year-old child does not fit that seatbelt properly. There's something called the 5-step test, and that helps you determine when that seatbelt is going to keep them safe. And so until they reach that point, it's just better to keep them restrained.
Now you got my curiosity piqued. 5 steps?
Yeah, the 5-step test. So when they're sitting in that seatbelt, or in the seat with the adult seatbelt, they need to have their bum all the way to the back of the seat with their knees bending at the edge, preferably with their feet on the floor. We need that lap belt across their hip bones. We don't want it coming up into their abdomen. Need the shoulder belt sitting centered on their collarbones. We don't want it coming up against their neck or falling down. And then they need to be able to hold that position all the time. So if they can get in that position when you're testing them and then immediately slump out of spot, they still need their booster. And we really need to work on that, because as soon as that seatbelt is out of position, it's not going to do its job. And unfortunately, collisions are the primary cause of accidental death between children 1 to 12 years old.
Wow.
So we really need to make sure that that's going to keep them safe.
Sorry, I was just letting TikTok know where we are, because we're getting questions as to how to find the rest of the show. So we'll have more people jumping in from here to there.
Amanda, I always get questioned in regards to why is it safer for a child to be rear facing versus front facing? Because as they get older, they want to see what's going on, or they feel like their child is too big to be rear facing. What do you say to those parents and caregivers?
So it has to do with their way their bodies develop. So a child is not just a small adult. Their bones and everything are not developed. So the best way I found to explain it is when it comes to their spine. So as an adult, our vertebrae are kind of close together like this. They're interconnected, and so they support each other. Little ones, their vertebrae are far further apart with a lot more cartilage. Cartilage is stretchier than bone. And so we want to keep them rear facing so that their head, neck, and spine is entirely supported by that car seat. In a collision, they're going to be pushed into the car seat to support them instead of being pulled forward and only having that harness to support them.
I can tell you that my kids, who might be big kids because I'm a big person, were very hard to convince that rear facing was fun, and they were kind of pretzeled up. It was really uncomfortable. And at what point? Because my cousin, who's a doctor, who may be watching right now, says keep them in rear facing until 4 years old. Is that how do you do that? Is there an adjustment that you can
So different seats are going to be better for different children. I'm 5'1". There are car seats on the market that I fit in rear facing.
Really?
Legroom wise. And I have picture proof of this.
Wow.
I believe it.
Whereas there's other seats that are going to give you far less room. So as someone who's 5'1", if I have kids, they're genetically going to be shorter. They're not going to need all of that space. Whereas if you've got very tall parents, their seats are going to be much better suited for them. But the reality is, they're far more comfortable than we give them credit for. If you tell a 2-year-old, or if you ask a 2-year-old, are your legs uncomfortable? They're now going to parrot you and say, oh, yes, my legs are uncomfortable. If you just kind of hype it up, and yes, there's this time period where kids have discovered that they have freedom of movement and they really want that, and you're strapping them down. It's not really going to matter if they're rear facing, forward facing, in a stroller, in a high chair. You are taking their freedom of movement away, and they're mad about that. Once you get past that age, they get back into it and they're fine. I've seen friends that have kids rear facing 4 or 5 years old. If they fit, it is the safest option for them. Even as adults, now we can't drive rear facing, but if rear facing was an option in a vehicle, it would still support our head, neck, and spine better than a forward facing seatbelt would.
So what you're saying is we need to design a car that uses cameras to go one way while we face the other way while driving. This sounds as dangerous, but as a passenger...
What the Tesla is planning.
Come on.
We're not there yet. But I've seen the pictures of these concept cars that is what they're doing.
Come on.
I mean, it's... For adults, our spines are stronger. Our bones are stronger. Our muscles can handle us. So we're not as at risk as a kid is. Kids don't need to face forward. I mean, sure, we think that they want to. They don't know any different until we tell them. So have them in their seat, have them rear facing. You are the adult. Your kid may want to run with scissors and you still tell them no. This is the safest option for them. And so keep them that way as long as you possibly can. Every moment that you keep them rear facing, their bones are that much stronger before you turn them around.
That's awesome. So now that we've gone from the bucket and rear so infant bucket, and then we get to rear facing, and I know there's convertibles and there's all sorts of options, but ultimately it's check with the manufacturer, try and keep them in there as long as possible because it's simply safer. But let's talk about placement in the vehicle. Where is the best place to put one of these car seats? There's so many options.
Where you can get the safest installation. So for the longest time, we've said the center is the safest position because it's the furthest away from every point of contact. Okay. Now, I will say a lot of that has been around for so long. Vehicles have changed. We now have side curtain airbags, reinforced side pillars. There isn't that major safety difference that we used to have. The other thing that's happened is center seating positions are rarely full seating positions anymore. They tend to be very narrow. They've got the humps, and it's a lot harder to get a safe installation there. So it's a better option to put the seat where you can get the installation. So if it's on the side where it's not impacting the driver's ability to be in a safe driving position, and you can get it nice and secure, that's the safest spot for them. The other thing that comes in is if it's in the center, can you get the little one in and out of their seat safely? So if it's in the center position and you're putting them in, but you're not climbing in there, so you're not getting them nice and secure the same way, that's not the safe position for them. It's better to have them on the outside at that point where you can reach in and tighten that harness up nice and tight to keep the spot.
That makes a lot of sense. And, it sort of comes back to the discussion about 5-point harnesses for adults. People don't wear them properly and they're not intended for the road. But they say, well, kids wear them. Aren't they safer? Well, they have an adult putting them in and strapping them in. That's part of it.
The other thing that people don't realize with race car harnesses is for an adult in a race car harness, their helmet is also tethered back. If you put an adult in a race car harness without all of the other things that come along with it, what you're then doing is strapping your torso back and giving your head freedom of movement. You're actually increasing the strength, the force on your neck at that point and putting yourself at a higher risk of injury.
I want to do a TikTok with you just saying that because you will bend the minds of people watching our TikTok. And for the people watching TikTok, come onto YouTube because this is a great conversation. Amanda is talking about race car harnesses and child seats and all sorts of things. You should be over here. Traffic Services Toronto Police, just saying. So we got to schedule and do a TikTok because that will definitely possibly compete with Sergeant Kraft's starring role. But just saying. Now there's so we established that the 5-point harness is only effective when properly worn in the appropriate position and with the appropriate equipment. So the argument for adults is moot. But what about I drive a pickup truck? I only have front seats. Can I put my car seat there? I have a sports car. My Lambo only has one seat for a kid's harness.
So the first thought that always comes to mind is if you have a Lambo, you probably have the money to afford a family vehicle as well.
Okay. Just saying.
I mean.
Sorry.
Your fancy car may be nice and fancy, doesn't mean it's safe for your kid to be in.
Okay.
Now, with pickup trucks, and actually front seats in general, the issue with having your kid in the front seat is the airbag. That's the only issue. It's not that the front seat is not safe overall. It's that you have this airbag that is flying out of the front of your vehicle at a very, very high rate of speed. And a child is not designed to be able to handle the force. I mean, adults get seriously injured from airbags. Kids can't take it. Now, some vehicles have the key turnoffs. It's less common now in the States for pickup trucks. The key turnoff is actually no longer allowed by regulation. We share a vehicle fleet with the state, so a lot of Canadian trucks have now phased it out as well.
I didn't know that. That's news.
So they've removed. I don't remember the exact year, but it's been several years now since they've removed the allowance and regulation for it. But I mean, if you turn off your airbag, then you could. Transport Canada does have a program where you can get official approval under very, very specific circumstances to have mechanics remove your airbag.
Okay.
Well, at that point, no adult or anyone can sit in that position. It can only be used for that. And if you ever sell your vehicle, you have to pay to get it put back in. It's fairly expensive process overall to get it taken out and put back in. It's primarily meant for people with medical conditions who can't take the airbag, but can be used for child purposes as well. Okay. Now, I will say removing the fuse from your airbag doesn't count. Those sensors that sense your weight, they don't count. It has to be either a key turn off, switch turn off, or complete
removal.
Unit has to be completely removed.
So if you just to recap, you want to put your kid in the front seat with you can't rely on the sensor that says weight sensing because it could still go off and could seriously injure the child, and that goes against everything you're trying to do. Because assuming you like your kids, you want them to survive the collision and not put them into increased harm. So you have to either have it disabled, and new vehicles no longer allow you to key disable, and there's no switch unless potentially it's put in aftermarket, but it wouldn't be legal. So you're in a bit of a pickle. So no Lambos for kiddo until what age? When can you put a kid in the front seat?
So this is a bit of a mix. I saw the comment pop up. I mean, I now have additional questions for you, but we're going to move on. It's a bit of a mix. So legally, technically, once they're out of a booster, they could be in the front seat. Now, there's the issues of when should a child come out of a booster legally versus when they actually should. But also, their bones are still not fully developed. Really, it's 13 because of puberty. We want their bones to start going through that process in puberty where those hip bones, they actually change shape slightly so they can handle the force of that seatbelt and keep it in position.
So you're saying until their voice drops, they stay in the back seat?
13 is generally a good
age to go. All right, so
some preteens will say that's not fair at all. Just saying.
Just saying. Well, let's recap again. So, and I echo a lot of the things we've talked about last time you were on when we're on TikTok on either Voice Over Cop or on Traffic Services account, and people say, when can my kid go in the front seat? So, we just to go back, the law says 8 years, 80 pounds, or 4'9". Any one of those three would qualify to be in seatbelt only. But as I see you cringe, it's not because that's the safest. That's because that's the legal requirement. You're still better off being in at very least.
In Ontario have not been updated since the early 2000s. I believe it was 2002.
Okay, so 2002, we're almost 20 years of and the laws are somewhat outdated. They don't necessarily match what's going on. So, okay. We're just saying that's the legal requirement. You can't be ticketed for it, but you could still be putting your child at risk. So that's something to really consider. And ways to promote the safe traveling, regardless of law, is stay in a booster, a supported child restraint as long as possible, and do it based on the guidelines of the manufacturer, because they're going to tell you for what you have, what the longest they can be in. I bought one that will keep my children in until they're 110 or 120 pounds. They're going to be big kids, and they will expand and grow with them until they convert it into a booster only, and that will still change the placement of the seatbelt. So in the event of a collision, you're going to be in a better position, and then eventually they won't need the car seat, but still keep them in the back seat, even if they're big kids, until they're over 13 is what I usually say. So when they're 14 front seat. And is it a pain in the butt? Okay, it's a plane. It's not convenient, and they won't like it. But is it safest? And is that more important? I think it is.
There's a lot of things we tell kids that they don't like. This is just another one. You know, there's a lot. We don't need to rush our kids. I don't understand what it is about car seats where we don't want to keep them babies. You know, everything else, you know, they're walking so fast, they're talking so fast, you know, they're getting to be such a big kid. You know, why can't they just stay a baby? Car seats, it's not a baby seat. It's a safety seat.
Yes.
And you know, kids still need that. I'm short. I probably needed a booster far longer than I did. Now the laws were different at that time, but I remember being, you know, well under 8 and not having a booster and laying across the seat and falling out of the seat and all of that because it's not meant for a child. It's an adult seatbelt, and we need to kind of change our wording around things. They're not baby seats; they're safety seats, and they're not seatbelts; they're adult seatbelts.
And that's a really important thing to consider. Is cars aren't designed for kids. Some of them have built-in car seat adapters to try and do it, but those aren't really the best options. There are very expensive options that you can buy that have technology that are updated. And here's a really good question: how long will a car seat last?
That depends on the manufacturer. So they range. I believe now the least one is 6 years, and they can range up to 10 years. Some boosters go as far as 12. It all depends on the materials, and so that's why each one's going to have a different point. Things degrade at different time frames, and even if it looks okay, it's been in your vehicle with the heat and cold cycles and the UV damage and all of that.
Yeah.
If you've ever sat on a plastic patio chair and had it not hold you because it's just been outside for too long, you don't want your car seat to do the same thing. Now, it's not going to, you know, explode the day after it expires, but you don't want to continue using it because at that point you're assuming it's going to do its job instead of knowing it's going to do its job.
And just along those, sorry, go ahead, Sean.
No, you go ahead.
Just along those lines, Amanda, we've had that question during our car seat installation clinics. What about if a family is donated a child seat or sees one on the side of the road or at a used shop? What do you say to those families?
So each of those is slightly different scenarios. Side of the road, it's probably there for a reason. You know, if you're in a collision, you have to get rid of your seat. You're going to put it out for garbage. You don't want somebody to pick that seat up and use it. If I'm disposing of seats, I'll cut the harness, cut the adjuster straps, basically cut everything I can so that somebody can't use it. If you're getting it from a friend or getting it from somebody else, you have to think you are trusting that person with your child's life. How much do you trust what they're saying? You know, if it's my best friend and I know how they've treated it, yeah, sure. I mean, car seats going to be expensive, especially that infant seat stage where the one that clips to the stroller. You're using it for usually less than a year. You know, why spend another $400 on one if your best friend has just finished with one or your sister, cousin, whatever, if you trust them. Person on Kijiji that's, you know, just trying to make a buck, do you trust them with your child's life? That's really what it comes down to. You don't know if it's been in a collision, if it's been pressure washed, if it's been thrown down a flight of stairs. You don't know what they've done to it that could have damaged it.
You make a really good point, and that is you can't predict. You don't know. I was in a collision. The insurance company said, okay, don't use those car seats anymore. We'll pay for new ones. It's one impact, just like a bicycle helmet. That's foam. That foam is designed for a single absorption of inertia or one bang. That's it. So if you are taking someone else's stuff that they've obviously had replaced or they have a reason to get rid of it, beyond simply having a child grow up, which still means it's been around for long enough that the foam has become more brittle. It's not going to do its job. It's not going to be the best protection. And going back to aside from Hooli the Fool, who says he doesn't necessarily like his kids, we want to do the things that are safest, and saving a few bucks isn't going to coincide with that. So yeah, a deal is not a deal when it puts your children at risk. And because you cannot assume that it's perfect, you have to assume it's not, and that means don't use that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's great seats out there at a range of price points. You don't have to buy the $600 car seat to keep your child safe. One of the seats that I recommend frequently to parents is it's through Walmart, the Evenflow Titan 65 that comes in regularly at under $100. It's a great seat that lasts children for a very, very long period of time. Now, it doesn't have some of the bells and whistles that some of the more expensive seats will have, but those are ease of use features, not child safety features.
Was I muted when I actually said like 10 sentences 5 minutes ago?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
we thought you were having a sidebar conversation.
I was having a sidebar. I keep jumping back and forth,
So-
talking to TikTok here. They want to know what my YouTube channel is, and it's the Traffic Services Toronto Police YouTube channel. And now I can actually say that I don't know what I just said last time. Can anyone lip read and do the subtitles for me, because I don't know what I said. It was probably really good too. It was heartbreaking. I think I said something to the effect of a deal is not a deal, and you can't guarantee that. That's something that was given to you. I don't know what I said. The moment has passed.
Well, so I've worked in the industry through various means, including through manufacturers, and we actually had a situation where somebody reached out to us who had bought it was a separate situation where they had bought their seat, and we found from somebody used, and we happened to find out that this seat had been in a collision just because the original owners had reached out to us at the time of the collision. And so then the new owners are realizing that this seat that they just spent a decent amount of money on used, they can't use because it's been crashed.
Right.
You don't want to be in that position where, you've spent this money, you're now out money that could have bought you a new seat, and you don't have a seat because the one you have isn't working.
A deal is not a deal. When it comes to putting lives in jeopardy, the whole exercise is not to avoid getting a ticket; it's to keep your kids safe. And as a parent of two, I can tell you that the scariest thing was going for a drive the first time with my little one in a bucket going home. And they're so tiny and fragile, and you want to make sure that you can protect them. In fact, that's my only job in life now, is to keep my kids safe. So am I going to do that to save $50, $100? I spend I wanted to know the best one. I was willing to spend anything. Although I didn't go for the one that had the race car technology and magnesium frame, because I couldn't do it. But the fact is, there is all sorts of technology. There's all sorts of good advice. There's lots of reviews, and then you have people that work with Amanda here, and I want to be able to send people to get some good advice. Yeah. And I'm thinking that advice might be here.
Definitely. So Amanda, if I'm a soon-to-be parent, which I'm not, but if I were and was looking for more advice or the proper advice, where would you direct me to go and do some research, or to connect with someone who's an expert in the industry?
Yeah, so to connect with a technician, so the link that's on the screen there, SIPSAC, is a great one. They have a Find a Tech map, and so that's going to help you find a certified technician in your area that can help you out. Now, when you're just at the researching stages, there's a few great options. So car seats for the littles, which I don't know if he has the link for ready.
I don't have that one.
So csftl.org, they have they're a group of car seat technicians based out of both Canada and the States that does reviews, and they have a recommended seats. And the recommended seats aren't, ones that aren't on the list. This list aren't safe. It's these seats are easy to use, last children a long time, things like that. And so these will give you pros and cons. Not everyone needs the same seat. If you have a small vehicle, you're going to look for a seat that might say, good for small spaces. If you've got a minivan, probably not as much of a determining feature for you. If you are having your third little one and are putting all three seats in a row, you're going to need an air. If this is your first little one, you might not need that. So everyone has different needs. The seat that your friend says is the best may not be the best for you, for a few reasons. One, you don't have their child, their vehicle, their everything. But also, statistically, 75 to 90% of seats are not installed or used correctly.
Right.
So the seat
75 to 90, sorry?
Yep, 75
wow.
to 90% are not installed and or used properly.
That's staggering.
It is, especially considering that's what's keeping your child safe in the vehicle. But when you think of that, when you look at parent reviews, so your best friend, random influencer online, do you know that they're using the seat correctly? So if they say, this is a great option, is it really, or are they just not using it properly to get them there? So when you're looking for reviews, you really want to look at ones that are done by car seat technicians, because they're the ones that know how to install, know what they're looking for, and are going to give you that accurate review.
That makes a lot of sense, because when we're out there and I buy a new camera, I'm looking for stuff, I go and check out reviews. And just because Bob from Bob's basement of fun cameras says it's good really doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm going through tons and tons of information, trying to siphon through who I actually buy into. I want to see what the work they're producing is. How does it relate to me? And you've hit the nail on the head, at least something that I can relate to, in that a car seat a professional is going to give me better advice than someone who says it was really easy to install when they had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I like one, and I might this might be me admitting to having a really crappy car seat, but I like the ones that are called click tight, that allow me to install and move them through, and I find it gives me a really great installation. I used to be a car seat installation person. I'm long since expired, but I found that those do a really good. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm down. I think we should do a live training.
Start doing the manual right now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
just save paper. I'll use yours. But those give me a really solid thing. Because what I like to see when I was doing installations and when I was inspecting is that I'd rock the car seat, and I want the whole car to move. I want it to be one thing, as opposed to the sloppy bouncing around that I'm often seeing.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily need to be so tight that the vehicle moves. That I've actually seen both car seats and seatbelts get damaged from too tight installations. But you do want it tight enough. The rule of thumb is if you grab it where the belt goes through and give it a shake similar to a strong handshake, you want it to move an inch or less.
Right.
Okay, that's still a lot of movement. That surprises me.
It's not a small amount of movement, but it is a loud amount of movement. That's when they're doing the crash test in the labs and all that. That's what the allowed amount is. I have seen, now you have to remember, car seats are plastic overall. They can have metal components, but most of it is plastic. If you install too tight, you can get stress marks on the plastic.
Interesting.
Those stress marks are then points where it could fail in a collision. So we don't want to damage it. The click tight is a great example of a feature that a company has made to make it easier to install. I have seen people use the click tight to get their seat again too tight and damage the seatbelt.
Right.
Okay.
So you
construction fray.
Too tight. And the other thing that happens, and I see this a lot with what we call, technicians or professional installers, is you get it so tight that the parent can't replicate it, and then they don't think that they can install it. We are allowed a little bit of movement, and the parent needs to be able to understand that everyone has the ability, different disabilities and that aside, to install a car seat. I'm not a big, strong person by any means. I can frequently get the seat tighter than, the big dad comes in, I'm a firefighter or whatever, and, it's impossible, I can't go tighter. I go in, I show the right amount of leverage and angles and all of that. And now mom's installing it and feeling all proud because, her husband said that he can't do it and it's impossible. And now she's doing it perfectly.
You have brought you have blown my mind there. I've learned something here, because I've gone with the whole refit as tight as possible. So I may have been doing damage to my vehicle and to the car seat. That's amazing. I didn't know that. I'm so thankful you mentioned it, because I don't think we covered that specifically last time. Hooli the Fool, and I think it's Hooli as opposed to Howley. I don't know. I had no idea the car seats expired, so he has also learned something. Now. John Powery says, are infant seats bucket now having the handle in the up position? Sorry, you may want to read this yourself, because apparently I'm having difficulty. Now having the handle in the up position, I have heard. Any truth to that? Seems to me that it's something for a child to strike in a violent collision. So that's, I guess, when it's parked, what position it should be in.
So the first part of this I want to touch on is, if the child is striking the handle in a collision, that means that they were not properly restrained, because the harness is going to keep them away from that handle. Now, when it comes to where the handle has to go, it really depends on the car seat. Some of them are going to say to keep it to move it all the way forward to the baby's feet. That's what we call a rebound position, and it changes that back and forth movement of the car seat. Some of them are going to say up. I actually like seats that say up, because then you don't have to move it around every time you get the seat in and out of the vehicle. You hold the handle, drop it in, and it's good. Others are going to say you want it at the top of the seat, kind of behind their head. Some say all the way down. Check your manual and check the pictures on the seat.
Okay.
The manufacturer is going to state that based on their testing. You don't want to use the seat with the handle in a position that the manufacturer hasn't tested, because then you're just guessing whether it's safe.
So at the end of the day, there's different features, there's different styles. You need to read the manual. It's prescribed reading. You got to do it because you could be doing it all wrong by simply. Sorry, there's a chat on the screen. So from our producer QQ, who is following and keeping us all in line. But it is. The fact is that you got to check those manuals. You have to keep in line with what's right and wrong, because the best seat in the world, if installed improperly or against the manufacturer's recommendations, is going to be less safe than it could be. And you would hate to find out afterwards that it was something that was user error that was the difference between an injury or not, or something truly tragic. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, when we say that 75 to 90% is not installed or used properly, when I'm at clinics and I have seats coming in, that stat still stands. But when I have seats come in that are perfectly installed, one of the first things I usually ask whichever parent had installed it was, did you read the manual? And they will say, yes. You can't install it properly if you didn't read the manual. You can't guess whether it's installed properly because you don't know. You have to, even as a technician, I've been doing this since 2013 now, however many years ago that was. And I will still pull out the manual when I install a seat, especially if it's the first time I've ever touched it. I'll have to refresh myself. I'll have to remember check on things. Now, you won't necessarily have to pull it out every single time you reinstall your own car seat, because you will learn how to do it. But the first time, you need to know what you're doing. You need to know where the belt goes, how everything sits. It's the only way to be able to do it properly.
Amanda, we touched on how secure a car seat has to be, an inch or less in movement around where the belt strap goes. Another point of contact is the restraints, adjusting the restraints, and maybe you can touch on that, particularly like as we're in summer, as we go into fall and then winter, in terms of having winter clothing. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So you don't want anything bulky under the harness. We need that harness nice and tight against them. Even as adults, I now don't wear my winter coat in the car, or I'll unzip it, because you need that belt against you. Anything else you add is going to compress in a collision and give you more room for movement. So you want to wear thin layers. Now, fabric isn't going to go anywhere, so that sweater is fine. That winter jacket with all the puff, that puff is going to deflate in a collision, and they're going to move. And what's one of the first things you do when you get in the vehicle? Typically, turn on the heat. You want to warm it up. So now you have your little one in the back in all of their layers that you've put them in, their snow pants and blankets and all of that. And then you've strapped them in, put them in the back where you can't see them. And then you've turned the heat on and they're hot. Let's, put them in their layers, throw a blanket over top of them. Anything you put on top of the harness once they're strapped in is fine. So throw those blankets on, let them be able to kick them off once they get warm.
Right.
Then, you're keeping them safe, and you're not potentially cooking your children in the back of your car.
Cooking kids is bad.
Typically, yeah. I've seen kids where they're like beet red in their car seats because they're just so hot from all of those layers.
And they can't regulate their temperature, which is what my wife tells me all the time. They're not like you. They're not like grown-ups. They can't regulate their temperature. And I have to listen to her because she's my wife and she's watching right now. Now, if what we so one of the things that we did is we went out and bought these like blankets that have an elastic band around them, so you could hug around the top of the bucket, and they had a portal, and you could unzip it, you could flip it, all these great things. And that was the solution, because you had all the benefits, but they weren't there was nothing in between them and the straps, because we talk about collisions and what happens when a vehicle stops and how it translates that deceleration, and you really have multiple impacts. And by having that thick piece of material underneath that, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do, what it was designed to do. So that's great that we're covering.
And something that you have to realize is their harness is only as tight as you make it. So our seatbelts in modern vehicles, like say last 10 to 20 years, they have a lot of features to tighten your seatbelt on you. So if you're in, say, the driver's seat, you have your retractor at the shoulder that's actually not only going to lock, but it's going to drop down to tighten your belt. And a lot of vehicles even have those points at the hips where in a collision, I'm trying to keep in the screen here, you've got 2 points that are going to drop down to pull that belt into you even tighter. Mm-hmm. Their seatbelts or their harness doesn't do that. So how tight you make it is as tight as it's going to be in a collision. Do you trust what you've just done to keep them safe in a collision, keep them in place? We need it snug. Think of how snug you swaddle them. They don't care that they're snug. Now, they may care that you've strapped them down because they want to move, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't like that they're tight in the harness. They just want to not be in the car seat, which, they have the same thought in the stroller, in the high chair, and everything else we strap them down into.
John Powery, who's my old partner in Motor Squad, says, I used to drape the children's coats over them like a blanket when they went into the seat in the car, easily pulled off when the temp is up. I like leaving words out in the sentences when I read them sometimes.
One of the things I've loved to show parents is take their coat off, put them in the seat, do the harness up, put the coat on them backwards. So put their arms through. Mm-hmm. So the back of the coat is along their front, keeps them nice and warm. Their arms are in it. Also, especially if you have little ones that like to play with their harness, it limits their access to all of those, clips and buckles and things that are oh so fun for kids to play with and drives parents absolutely wild.
Wow. We've covered a lot of stuff. Amazing. This must be overwhelming for some of the folks that are watching. And
it is a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, and which just means we need to have you back again to go over this again and again, because it's so important. And every time we talk and address the topic, we talk about new stuff, because I've learned stuff that we didn't cover last time, and I thought you were really thorough. And by the way, we got amazing feedback about your last episode. So just again, you got to like once a month. We got to do once a month.
Anytime.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda. We've gone over by like 12 minutes from our regular scheduled end time, because it was just so good. It was so good.
We got a reminder there in our comments from QQ that if there's any information you want to revisit or you missed, you can rewatch it on YouTube.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, QQ. Yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always subscribe by hitting that button, hitting the bell. You'll get notified when we go live. You'll get notified when we post something. There? It's somewhere there. I don't know where to point. But the fact is, every episode that we've ever done, which is somewhere over 40 now, are all living on our channel. You can watch them at any time at the convenience of your own schedule. You can't ask us questions live, but you can always think about what you want to ask when we go live next. And that's usually at 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday. So hit the subscribe, hit the little bell. If you're watching us on any other platform, which could include Twitch, it could be including Twitter, it could be Facebook. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're coming in, because we want to be able to provide this content to you on a regular basis. And the only way to get us is to be notified, because you're a subscriber. So now there's another thing we want to talk about. So we don't. Instagram is a thing. We're on there. We've yet to go live on there. Maybe we'll start doing that too. But Traffic Services of Toronto is our account there. We are on YouTube, which we mentioned. It's YouTube. Sure, it's Traffic Services Toronto Police is the place to search, and the place that I spend the most time as the someone said that I actually have. Hold on, where are you pointing? Were you pointing? I don't know. You smiled and you reached up there. I thought you were trying to. I thought we were doing all this Vanna thing where we're doing.
I was making the chat go away because I can't see you.
Okay, I'm glad. All right, dudes. So what we do Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. is we go on to. We go to. I'm sorry. We go to.
Is it Friday yet? What's going on around here?
We're still doing this one more day.
You're the boss, man. You get to decide.
Hey.
So it's Traffic Services on TikTok. That's where we go. And actually, right now, this whole stream is being echoed on my VoiceOver Cop account, where people have been listening to only one half of the conversation. And as best I could, I told people to move on over to our regular channel, because this is where it's truly interactive with a Q&A and guests and excitement. On TikTok, it's just me answering your questions, and we have a great time doing it. We have content. We've got like over 250 videos up there now, over 135,000 subscribers on Traffic Services on TikTok. It's a great platform. We have a lot of fun. Join the conversation anywhere, everywhere, and we'll see you again soon. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Again, thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Sarge.
Thank you,
It is always fun, and we'll do it again soon. So tomorrow, 10:15, and we're going to have Scott Marshall, because tomorrow's Friday. So Scott's Thoughts on Fridays. It's a thing. We can't. It's now. I think it's permanent. We're just gonna, and it's good because he has less hair. Or we might be at the same. I have to call him and find out if he had a haircut. I might have to have a haircut. By the way, I got really burned yesterday. I got to buy a hat.
You got to keep that hat on.
Yeah, I wish I had my hat on yesterday.
No kidding. All right. We could just keep talking about hats and hair, But we're going to sign off. Thank you so much again. See you tomorrow.
Anytime.
Take care.